putting the sewer onto the general fund was the question that was asked.
Well, there was two things. One was straightening that down because of the money from the budget, from the general fund.
Right.
And that was an increasement of the assessment, so the assessment could pay for the debt on the sewer.
Yeah.
That was that. And then, you know, pay back the general fund, which is what they're doing.
In general.
The general fund, yeah.
However much it is.
Yeah,
what they owe presently or what they would owe in the future.
Yes, and to stop it from, you know, so in other words, on the assessment, once it's paid, the general fund is paid back, then it will take care of the debt on this new sewer plant.
Okay, so explain to me, if you can, the premise upon which we can take the money from the general fund in order to fund the sewer.
What?
Because if you're taking money from the general fund to fund the sewer, when I last was here, because I missed the last meeting, the question that Mr. Canary was left with was he had suggested that you could use general fund money in order to cover the cost of the landfill.
No, not the landfill.
Actually, there's two separate issues.
Okay.
There's one, put the landfill aside for
Yeah, this is,
Okay.
but that starts to get confusing then, yeah.
There's two different things
Okay.
to deal with. One, we've had to borrow money from the general fund
Correct.
just to fund the operations in
Yeah.
general, which has to be repaid to the...
Borrow. Legal.
Borrow has to go back. Has to legal.
Yeah, yeah.
To the general
No
fund.
question.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's one issue we gotta deal with,
Right.
how to do that. And the only way to really do that is what makes the most sense is some sort of increase in the assessment.
Right.
But just,
Then we get, go ahead.
if I could just to provide background, when they originally built the plant, and they were talking about the new rate structure and the assessments, they wanted to do a $100 assessment.
Correct.
So I think you're on the board about that, right?
Yeah, might have been.
Because they talked about $100 for the
Yeah,
assessment.
okay, yes.
They had a public hearing. Joel, you were here at the time. Your name was in the minutes. And it was going to be $100. Then there was a public outcry because of the rate. They figured, okay, let's start at 70 and move our way up. Since that point, nothing's been way. So the original intent was always to have $100 because anyone with basic math skills can do the math. If the annual debt service costs this much, we need to raise this much,
Right.
which is a no-brainer. And to make that math work, you need to have a $100 assessment quarterly.
But to be used only for debt service. Now, with that, what could probably happen, what Mary was saying, is if we treat, because we've been using also the money we collect for actual usage
Yeah.
to pay the debt service. So if we actually now allocate it all to the assessment, we probably can lower the rate structure to offset some of the assessment.
Slightly.
Why?
Not dramatically. Well, basically the idea being the amount of revenue that comes in from the rates.
Yeah.
You have the rates based on usage, the assessment is flat rate. The amount that comes in based on usage, a proportion of that goes towards paying off the debt
Right.
because the equation is not equal. If we raise the assessment, that would all go towards the debt. We would not need to take money from the O&M to pay off the debt.
Right. I mean,
So if the rates remain the way they are now, we would have a surplus year on year because that money wouldn't be going towards the debt.
okay.
So we would need the same amount annually from rates. So we could raise the assessment and that would all be towards the debt. The debt would be, for lack of a better word, self-sufficient,
Right.
and then the O&M cost would be the same, so we could decrease our annual rates.
Got it.
So that's one issue.
The cost to the homeowner will be practically the same.
Not
It's
necessarily.
not quite dollar for dollar the same. There will be a slight increase, but but we can offset some of the amount we're raising the assessment by lowering the rates.
Right.
However, though, keep in mind it's not as simple as that because when you have the assessments, that's per unit, the assessment stays flat. So the average homeowner of one house, one unit, yes, their assessment will go up, their rates will go down.
Right.
But you have businesses or places with multiple units,
Mm-hmm.
their usage might go down a little bit, but their assessments are going to go up. If you take bigger users, county buildings, schools, etc., and you're raising the assessment by $30, their amount is going to go up more substantially than the average
So,
rate.
in truth, the large users, those with the larger number of units, will be paying a bit more.
Well, and also the point I raised when we first had it brought up, if you take people that normally use the minimum, people on fixed income, things
Right,
like that,
that
we raise
will
the
be-
assessment on them, they're not using any more, they're gonna pay more automatically,
Right.
$120 a year roughly. So that was kind of the difficulty I had, but their rates will go down a little bit.
But their minimum will go down a hair too on the usage side.
Potentially, I mean, the minimum now, I believe,
The minimum is-
is 20 or 30, somewhere in there.
But that's a function of what that lowest tier of
Right,
Understood.
if
usage is.
we decrease the lowest tier
Yeah.
a little bit, yes.
It will offset some.
Some, not
Okay.
all of them.
So
even
to
for any
order
user-
this down, if you have more units or you're a large user, you're going to be paying a bit more. If you are on the lower end, the assessments go up, but your rates will go down. Therefore, the impact should be minimal.
It will offset, but not completely dollar to dollar.
Okay,
We'll see-
I understand, but the
increase,
impact will be minimal
But it'll be.
to your chart,
Lesser
yearly
than
chart.
that.
Part of the difficulty is, Mr. Veneri hasn't given us the exact numbers, the rates would
Right.
go down.
Well, that's what
So
we need.
the minimum could go from 30 to 29.
Right,
I mean,
Right.
which
okay.
is important, but I mean, it becomes a philosophical question at that point. Because do we want to raise the assessments, which is fixed for all units,
Yeah,
or do it based on usage? I know their original intent at the time was to raise the assessment $100 all over the place.
because that has more of an impact on the ultimate amount of money that we raise.
Right,
Correct,
Yeah,
which is
that's-
necessary.
right. But just to put all information out there, if you raise the rates on everyone, particularly the schools that have a number of units, that don't pay taxes, but pay for
Yeah.
water sewer, their rates are gonna go up.
Right.
So then the school budget goes up, which could, adversely affect people rate-wise. Just, I'm not saying that's a reason not or against, but just let's put everything on the table.
Okay, so that takes care of that issue.
Correct.
Which
Okay, just to-
which I understood.
Which has
Okay.
nothing to do
Yeah.
with the dirt.
And why we're combining both issues, not combining both issues, but they're both issues are kind of the same, is we're gonna have a public hearing. In order to raise the rates, you have to have a public hearing. So rather than having a public hearing than another public hearing, we're gonna have a public hearing on the same thing whether we raise the assessment or the rates, however we do that.
Okay.
And also on paying off the bond for moving the dirt.
Okay,
So we'll do it in one public hearing.
that's sensible.
But then, so then the next issue, how do we pay for moving
How
the
we
dirt?
pay for the dirt, and that's what,
Which is separate from what we just discussed.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, I
we'll
understand.
address it in maybe one public hearing for.
yeah, and then people, we'll have a public hearing, and people can put in their input or whatever, and then we have to decide. Mr. Veneri gave us, I think, 4 options.
Exhibit 8 in our package here.
Is that the one that has the 4 options? or-
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah. And that's what, what we have to decide how to pay it off, but they already are taking the dirt. We signed it, I was authorized to sign a contract, and now we have to decide, not now, but I mean, at the public hearing, we'll put this out and say which one, but the board has to decide is how they want to do it, A, B, C, or D.
understood.
Understood.
And the payback on a VAN is 5,000 as opposed to anything from 7.5 to 9+ to almost 11.
Yeah, but the,
5 million.
I'm sorry,
Just to be
million.
clear.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
just to be clear.
Blah, 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 blah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we're going
But-
to 5,000.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
yeah, but the one that cost us 10 million is over 30 years.
I understand.
So, and he just put 6% because, to err on the high side is always the best. But so we have to decide which is more palatable to do, which we think we do. The problem, of course, you'd look at the price and say, hey, D's the option. That's the one we want to go for. But the problem is, can we go for that much money that fast?
Well, it boils down to 3 styles of options. Is 1, we can just add more to the assessment
Right.
every year. 2, we can add it to the people's taxes based on their home value, or we can add a land tax.
Okay,
If
now
we have
that
a
brings
land
me
tax-
to my original question.
Let me throw the 3 options
Go
out
ahead.
there. With the land tax, that would at least also bring exempt properties in, because they're not exempt from their land tax.
Uh-huh.
So at least if we decide to do it in a tax method, land seems to me like it would make the most sense if we did it with a tax-based method, just because that would also bring in exempt properties too. They would
Right.
be free from paying.
Which would not include outside users.
Right.
Why not?
Because they don't pay taxes.
They don't pay taxes
Right.
to us, to land.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
All right, leave it down. so they would not be paying at all. So could we levy something else on them?
Yeah, we've been so successful, it's a bad.
No, I'm serious. I'm serious.
But we would need our partner in contract to agree to that. It's a negotiation.
Yeah.
It's not a guarantee.
It's not a guarantee, but philosophically speaking, I think we should think that however we ultimately have to raise the additional funds on village users, I certainly would want the same thing to apply to out-of-village users.
Right, the contract, and I thought you meant levy in terms of hit them with a tax. I mean, yeah, contractually, we definitely do anything.
Yeah.
The reason that perhaps doing it on a land basis makes sense is that it's tax deductible at least.
For the, for the taxpayer.
Yeah, I get it. And his position, Mr. Veneri's position on the fact that you can legally do this, put it on land tax, I had questioned whether,
He said there were some legal questions that he worked out.
Right.
He was going to get us information.
Oh, we don't have the answers to those questions
No.
yet? Because I think those are critical questions.
Oh, yeah.
I never heard where we were, God knows I'm willing to learn.
Yeah.
If
Well,
someone can enlighten me, but we've never been able to mix the two before, and I need to have that clearly explained to me.
I guess difficulty for me, when you look at the numbers, the BAN was cost-effective, hands down. You're
Yeah.
talking $5,400,000 compared to $10,800,000.
Without question.
The question is, and I don't know if we can answer this alone, is can we hit people with a $223 yearly assessment increase? I don't know the legality, but I'm almost wondering if this is something that should be a referendum. Because, I don't know, but
we don't have the time to do a referendum on it.
No, and I think
We have to pay.
we can.
We have to pay.
well, we could come up with one. I think that you don't have to do it the same day as election. We could get the word out there. I don't know legality.
But we have to stop paying them prior
But
to.
if we're going to hit people with a we're already doing, 30 times 4, $120 yearly increase in the assessment. $120 per unit.
Proposing, yeah.
Right. Well, I haven't heard any strong reaction against that.
It might come at the public hearing.
Well, yeah, but that's my point, though.
Yeah.
It looks like we're moving in the direction of 120 years.
Yeah, probably, for that part, yeah.
On top of that, $200+ a year.
That's if we go that, that's,
If we go with the BAN.
Right.
that's what the BAN is, it's not attractive.
Kyle, isn't taking any position without knowing exactly what the legalities are too
Well,
short?
if we have any question of the legalities, we deal with David.
Yeah,
As far as the land tax, there's other ways that we know are legal that we can do it. So,
Correct.
We don't really have a lot of time. We contracted with these people. They gave us 90 days. So
Correct.
whatever way we have to come up with, if we doubt it's legal, then we won't go that way. That's all. We'll say then we can't do that, and we won't do it that way.
when can we have that conversation
What?
with David?
David's working on this now.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, because he was here with the meeting with Veneer.
right.
But back to what I was saying, though. If we're going to say we're going to increase $223 a year,
If we go on the BAN.
or 145, 223, that makes sense. 7 years it's done. Goes from 223 to 0.
Correct,
The 145, 15 years it takes.
yeah.
$223 a year is substantial to a lot of people.
Yeah,
I'm not minimizing.
I'm just wondering, listen, again, I don't know the legality, I'm not pretending I do, but if we wanted to do a referendum, I assume we could. I'm not saying that's the way to go, we're
We don't have
elected to
the time.
make decisions.
You don't have
But being
time
before.
for a referendum. A referendum takes there are the legal announcements, et cetera. That is months in the working.
What do you mean? What are
It takes, you'll get the
It takes a
from
while.
our attorney, but it is weeks and weeks long for a referendum.
We have a few weeks, I'm not saying we should,
I think
I'm
Well, what
not
if
saying I'm in favor of
they
that.
take it to its extent? What if they say no?
What if,
you have no choice.
well, no, a referendum on the different options. I don't know, I'm not saying I'm 100% in favor of that. I'm just saying, this is a
I would
serious...
definitely be against it going to the referendum.
I
No,
think that you
giving
have
them the four
already, to bring up referendum now, Kyle, with all respect, I think we already contracted, we were delighted to come up with someone who was finally going to be the one to be able, we found a company that was finally going to be able to deal with this issue. If there was going to be a question of referendum, I think that should have come up 2 months ago, 3 months ago, or 5 months ago.
We didn't have this information then.
Yeah, well, no,
It would have been the same
whatever,
thing.
but I mean, just, I can't say it's impossible, but I just say it would be very difficult to get a referendum. We have, we agreed to pay him within 90 days when he started. So we're
I mean,
a week, plus 90 days, so that's 82 days.
you contracted to do that within 90 days.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
So
And
they-
listen, if it doesn't, I'm just saying, let's consider this is a work session, we're working, right?
Yeah, but, and then,
Are we
we
taking
go to
action?
referendum, you just gotta figure time frames. I'm not opposed to referendum, just the time frames. And then, whatever would be decided at the referendum, then we have to work out the details of how that is, how we're gonna do it, whether it's the BAN, or the 30 years, or the 15 years, or the 20 years. So, then you know, you don't have that much time to secure that loan. You can't go out and say to your lender, all right, we're gonna try to do this way, and set up the paperwork for the 4 options. If you have to wait to the referendum and then secure whichever option you go with.
I'm not looking for a resolution tonight, we don't do those.
No, we don't,
Here.
no.
But I'm saying, at least, this is a substantial decision with dire financial impacts on people. We should at least think about the concept. If our attorney says we don't have enough time, no way, no how, cool, that's fine, then that is what it is.
I'll bring it up to David tomorrow.
I would say
That's all I'm
that,
saying, and, I mean, I've been getting interrupted a lot tonight, and I recognize that, I know this is a contentious issue. However, this is a work session, we're here to do work.
Absolutely.
So I think that discussing through this is important, and I don't plan on interrupting anyone, so I would prefer the same on my end.
Yeah,
This is a substantial amount of money to be burdening people on top of whatever other raises are gonna be there. Right now, we have 0 contracts with outside users, okay, we have, I'm gonna bring up something later I'd like us to talk about, but at this point, sitting here right now, we have no new revenue coming in anytime soon, okay? So whatever we decide, whether next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, is gonna last for a long time. And the people that live in this community are gonna have to deal with that. And there's a lot of people that already are struggling to pay these bills, that to do $200 and $300 more every year, that's a huge impact. So maybe it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to entertain the options and the legality of letting people have more of a say than coming in on a work session. We've already put something down on paper. That's all I'm saying. We don't have to just talk about it anymore tonight. We don't have to decide it. But I think it merits a lot more discussion than let's look at the numbers and say, oh, we'll put this up and here what people come out to say about it. That's all I have to say.
Okay, I apologize if I was interrupting you.
that certainly wasn't my intent, I think. Can I respond now?
Yeah, sure.
The cost of dealing with the landfill, the cost of running the sewer plant may not have been finitely known to the dollar. The concept has been known to us for a long time. I think that anytime we can get as much input from the public as possible, we all benefit because they get to let us know what's on their mind. However, that being said, it is no surprise that there are going to be increases here. We've all known that. I think that the manner in which the breakdown has been presented to us gives us a focus on which way to raise those funds. I would like for everything to be easy. I would like no one to have to pay an additional dollar. However, that cannot be the case. I think that it is a lovely idea to believe that we can make things the least impacting on every household that we possibly can. And we would all want to do that. I think in reality, we know and have known that there was going to have to be an increase. Certainly, if there can ever be an opportunity for more public input, rarely would you find anyone sitting here who would be more in favor of that than I. I do say that we charge our attorney with finding out the answer to your question, absolutely, but I think it's a little late for the question to be raised. I think that I hope we can. I hope he can address it. I hope that we can do everything we can to give everyone the opportunity. However, I would want to be very honest with the public to say that there has to be a way to cover the additional costs. I wish it didn't have to be. I'm sure every one of us sitting here wishes it didn't have to be. But I would not want to placate them to the point of thinking there's some way that we can make it disappear. There are additional costs. I want them to be done in the least significant impact as possible. However, short-term cost of $200 as opposed to paying twice the amount over long-term, I think is a serious issue to be discussed, and it'll come up when where my mind is, when Mr. Donovan comes back with the information and we get the final answers from our Mr. Veneri to tell us what is legally able to be done or not. And I really think that I can't go any further in assessing it until I have those answers. That's it.
Okay. Ed, do you have anything else?
No, just for me, it's either the assessment or a land valuation. It can't be a home tax valuation just because we're letting that properties off the hook then, which it can't be. And as I look at the numbers, I mean, just by way of example, just using the assessment on a single-family home as an example, BAN was the 30-year. I mean, yeah, BAN over 7 years is going to be about $1,600 a household. Probably better than $3,000 plus over 30. Just pull the Band-Aid off and move on.
Okay. Kyle?
I don't know.
All right, yeah.
I said what I had to say. I mean, there's questions that need to be answered. I agree with what I just said. Everyone that's using it needs to pay a portion. I mean, that's...
Yeah.
Sounds fair.
All right.
I think we can all see some concurrence, and I think we have to go with
Okay.
whatever option it is that everyone...
Yeah, whichever is for, but that way, yeah. But we're pretty much all in agreement with the assessment, I guess.
Talking about issue 1.
Issue 1, yeah.
Issue 1 was easier.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that was the original intent, I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
They did the math then, the math hasn't changed. It'd be nice if the math has changed, but it hasn't.
Yeah.
And the amount that we're bringing in assessments doesn't cover the debt on an annual basis. And that's the unfortunate reality. And until we get new users, it's going to continue to be the reality.
All right.
It worked, at the same time, it worked for 4 or 5 years, it's just not working anymore.
Yeah, but maybe if we did 85 at that time, we would be in better shape.
Can't
And
change
if we,
it worked
Correct.
for a while, but the time has now come that that was known that was going to come eventually.
But that was the original intent.
I
I just wanted to be clear to the public that when they built the sewer plant, they had a hearing and they said $100 assessment.
Yeah, I think they even said more at one point. They were talking around 112 even at one point.
Okay. Now, at 7:30, we got a call from the attorney on the Redbird. Wants to
Now.
speak to us. It's just 7:30 now, so we got to go into executive session to take that. It's on the Redbird lawsuit. Well, let's wait. We can still wait until
He's calling us,
He's
right?
calling us. Yeah,
Okay,
so we get a phone ring. So let's
keep going.
Yeah, moving on. Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
He could be late. Not all lawyers are prompt as Ed and Dave and Mal. All right, the period lighting. I just want to bring this up for the first time, just something to consider. We have regulations law where we say new developers have to have periodic lighting, and it's very nice looking, except it's not efficient, and that's not even a problem. The problem is that when it breaks down, we fix it, O&R will fix it. Now, O&R has 3 different types of light fixtures. I haven't seen them yet. I've been told by a building inspector that one of them appears like our periodic lighting. All I want to do is start looking into it. I might just go, hey, we can't do it. But anyway, Mike's been complaining to me about the periodic lighting, that when they go out, he's got to fix it, O&R won't touch it. So,
The other way to approach it, I think we should consider as well, is when you have a developer who comes in, here comes the call.
Yeah.
When the developer comes in and constructs, that they have a maintenance that has to go into maintaining period life. We've done that.
Yeah, that's another way of looking at it too, but if we can find something that O&R puts
I'll
out,
take a look at it.
yeah, we'll take a look at it and then we'll say, we wash our hands of the whole thing. It's just something to consider. Just at this point, I'm just broaching the subject.
Well, thanks, how are you?
Is this,
Yeah.
What's the order of the town?
what?
What's the order of the town?
No, I think that.
They went into, we do the funding on the joint rec. They do the funding on the senior center.
Right.
Last year, they overbilled us $3,000 and kept the money until this year without informing us until the money was, till this year's budget telling us, oh, by the way, we overbilled you last $3,000 last year, we'll just put it to this year.
Okay.
That,
Yeah.
to see?
Yes.
Okay.
So what did you want to discuss? Just
Well, I want to discuss this, that it's either our turn to take over the senior center, or we pay half and they pay half.
Okay, so not to do an audit.
Well, no, I'd like to do an order also on the, there's only certain things that they can, on the senior center, on the senior bills definitely, because how did this 3,000 come about?
Where did it come from?
Where did it come from, exactly?
Who would pay for the audit?
We would pay for the order. It's just, again,
Let's deal with this first.
Let's take care of this here.
Somebody move the executive session.
Move to executive session.
Thank you.
Second?
Second, Kyle?
Second.